the reservation had been my mother's idea. I know this because she mentioned it 4 times in the 3 weeks leading up to the dinner, each mention carrying the particular weight of a woman who considers her logistical decisions evidence of her character. She had called the restaurant personally. She had requested the private dining room. She had specified the menu in advance. She told me on the phone the Thursday before, arranged everything perfectly. "It's important," she said. "The whole family will be there. We need to talk, Mara, as a family, about your future, my future." I had been hearing about my future from my parents since I was 23 years old, and had declined a position at my father's accounting firm to pursue what my mother called, with the compressed precision of a woman who chose her words for maximum efficiency, your experiment. 9 years later, the experiment had a name, a staff of 14, and a commercial real estate portfolio that my parents remained, by my deliberate choice, entirely unaware of. The restaurant was called Aldridge. It occupied a converted brownstone on the Upper West Side. Intimate, impeccably designed. The kind of place that felt like someone's beautifully appointed home until you looked closely enough to see the professional precision beneath the warmth. It had been open for 2 years. It had 3 months ago received its first major recognition from a national food publication. Reservations were now 6 weeks out on weekends. My parents had gotten a table because I owned the building. They did not know that. My name is Mara Aldridge. I am 32 years old, and this is the story of the dinner my parents arranged to remind me of everything I had failed to become, held, without their knowledge, in a room that bore my name on its lease. My parents were not unreasonable people. I want to say that because it is true, and because the truth of it makes the story more accurate, and also, I think, more useful. They were not villains. They were 2 people who had built a stable, comfortable life through specific, legible means. My father's accounting firm, my mother's 20-year career in hospital administration, and who had, quite genuinely, no framework for understanding a daughter who operated outside those means. Their concern was real. Their love was real. Their inability to see me clearly was also real. And it was this last thing, more than any specific criticism or pointed comparison, that had worn the groove between us into something deep enough to matter. They had wanted me at the accounting firm. I had wanted something I could not yet name at 23, which had made the conversation very difficult. What I had wanted, it turned out, was this: the specific intersection of hospitality, real estate, and the kind of community-embedded commercial development that most finance people found too complicated and most architects found too financial. I wanted to build places, not just own them, build the conditions in which excellent things could happen inside them. I had spent 9 years learning how to do that. The first 3 years had looked, from the outside, like nothing. A position at a small commercial real estate firm where I worked 70 hours a week and learned everything I could absorb about lease structures, building systems, tenant relationships, and the economics of food and beverage hospitality specifically. Nights and weekends spent on an MBA I had self-funded through the salary I was barely spending. Year 4, my first acquisition. A small mixed-use building in Astoria that I had purchased with the accumulated savings of 3 years of 70-hour weeks and the proceeds of a loan I had secured through a relationship I had carefully built with a commercial lender who believed, based on the thoroughness of my financial modeling, that I was worth the risk. Years 5 through 9, 3 more acquisitions. A property management company that I had built to manage my own portfolio, and then opened to outside clients, which now generated more revenue than the properties themselves. A reputation in a specific corner of New York's commercial real estate community as someone who understood hospitality tenants in a way that most landlords did not. Someone who chose tenants for their fit with a neighborhood's character, who structured leases to support a restaurant's actual cash flow cycle, who showed up to opening nights and understood what the people inside the buildings needed to succeed. The Aldridge building had been my 5th acquisition. I had named the building after myself. Not the restaurant, which had its own name and its own identity, but the building entity in the property management system. It was, I had thought at the time, a small, private act of acknowledgement, a thing I had built that carried my name in at least one document, even if no one who mattered to me knew it. My parents had chosen it by accident. They had found it in a review. They had called and made a reservation. They had not searched the property records. The dinner was on a Tuesday in November. I arrived exactly on time, a choice, not a coincidence. I had learned over years of family dinners that arriving early to events my parents had organized gave them time to establish the room's emotional architecture before I entered it. Arriving on time meant walking into a room where the architecture was already visible and I could orient myself before sitting down. My parents were already seated in the private dining room, a warm, beautifully proportioned space on the building's 2nd floor that I had specifically designed during the renovation to feel like the kind of room where important conversations could happen without feeling institutional. Dark wood, low lighting, a single long window overlooking the street below. My mother stood when I entered. The hug she gave me was the hug she always gave me, genuine in its warmth, slightly too brief, the hug of a woman who loves her daughter and is also, simultaneously, preparing to have a difficult conversation with her. My father shook my hand. He shook my hand at family dinners. I had long since stopped finding this strange. We sat. The server, a young woman named Priya, who had been with the restaurant since its opening, and who had, on 2 previous occasions when I had dined here incognito to assess the operation, demonstrated a quality of attentiveness that I considered exceptional, took our drink orders with the natural ease of someone completely at home in her role. I watched my parents look around the room. "It's lovely," my mother said, with the mild surprise of someone whose expectations have been slightly exceeded. "Excellent reviews," my father said, the highest compliment in his vocabulary. "I'm glad you like it," I said. We ordered. We made the careful small talk of people who are holding a larger conversation in reserve. Their work, my brother's recent promotion, the apartment my parents were considering in Florida for winters. The food arrived and was, as it always was in this restaurant, very good. I waited. My mother set down her fork at the precise midpoint of the main course. This was her tell. I had identified it approximately 15 years ago. The fork placement that meant the logistical portion of the evening was complete, and the actual agenda was beginning. "We want to talk about your situation," she said. "My situation," I said. "You're 32, she said, not unkindly, with the directness of a woman who considers clarity a form of respect. "You have been doing this for 9 years. The property management work, the real estate, She made a gesture that encompassed, I understood, all of it. "We never really understand what we're looking at when we ask about your work. That worries us. I've tried to explain it," I said. "We know," my father said, "and we know you feel we haven't listened. We're trying to listen now." He paused. "But we need honesty, Mara. Are you stable? Financially? Are you actually... Is this working?" I looked at my father. I looked at my mother. I looked at the room around us. The room I had designed, in the building I owned, at a table my parents had reserved in a restaurant whose lease bore my signature. "Yes," I said. "It's working." "How?" my mother said. "Show us. We ask every time, and you show us nothing concrete. We love you. We are not asking to be difficult. We are asking because we genuinely cannot tell if you are building something real or if you have spent 9 years." She stopped. Floating, I said. She pressed her lips together. Yes, she said. My father leaned forward. Your brother is a senior partner at 34. Your cousin Elena just made VP. We see these markers, and then we look at what you're doing, and we can't find the equivalent. We can't find the thing that tells us you're okay, Abel? Abel, because you're looking for a title, I said quietly. A position on a ladder you recognize. That's not what I built. Then what did you build? My mother said. Her voice was not cruel. It was the voice of a woman who had been asking this question for 9 years and had not yet received an answer that satisfied her. I was quiet for a moment. I picked up my water glass. I set it down. And at that exact moment, as though the building itself had decided the timing, the restaurant's owner, a man named James Okafor, who had been my tenant for 2 years, and who knew my face and my name, and the fact that the space he had built his dream inside belonged to me, walked through the door of the private dining room. He was not scheduled to be here. He was, I understood from his slightly surprised expression when he saw me, passing through on his way to a late kitchen meeting, and had not expected the private room to be occupied. He stopped. He looked at me, and then he did what James Okafor always did. He acted with the instinctive generosity of a man who understood, in his bones, how to treat people who had made his life possible. Mara. He crossed the room with the warm directness of a colleague addressing someone whose judgment he trusted completely. I didn't realize you'd be in tonight. I'm sorry to interrupt. He looked at my parents with genuine warmth. You must be her family. I'm James. I run the restaurant. A pause, and then, simply and without performance. Your daughter's building is the reason any of this exists. She doesn't say that to people, so I will. We wouldn't be here without her. My mother's fork was on the table. My father had gone very still. James excused himself with the grace of a man who understood he had said exactly enough and not a word more. The room was quiet. My mother looked at the door through which James had exited. Then she looked at me. Her building, she said. I own the property, I said. James leases it from me. Has for 2 years. This building, my father said. This restaurant. Yes. You own it. Among others, I said. 4 properties currently. A property management company that manages 12 buildings across the city for outside clients. A staff of 14. I kept my voice even. Not triumphant. Not sharp. Just clear, the way I had wanted to be clear for 9 years and had not been given the conditions for until now. That's what I built, Dad. That's the thing you couldn't find the marker for. It doesn't have a title you'd recognize. It has a lease. It has 14 people who depend on it. It has a building that someone built their dream inside. I paused. That's the equivalent. The silence was the longest of the evening. My father looked at the table. My mother looked at her hands. Then my mother looked up, and her expression was something I had not seen before in 32 years of being her daughter, something that had put down its agenda. Why didn't you tell us? She said, and her voice was smaller than I had heard it. Genuinely smaller, not strategic or practiced, just small. The voice of a woman who has realized she has been looking at the wrong thing for a very long time. I tried, I said. You didn't have the framework to hear it. And after a while, I paused, choosing the words carefully. After a while, the building was enough. I stopped needing the conversation. But you needed us to know, she said. I looked at her. Yes, I said. I did. My father asked, over dessert, about the acquisition process. This was, I want to be precise about this, the first time in 9 years that my father had asked a specific technical question about my work. Not a general inquiry dressed as concern. A real question, rooted in genuine curiosity, asked by a man who was revising his understanding of his daughter in real time and wanted to do it accurately. I answered him directly. No simplified version, no edited palatability. He asked follow-up questions. We talked for 40 minutes. At one point he said, quietly, You modeled this like an accounting problem. I learned from somewhere, I said. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I should have listened better. Not an apology, exactly. My father was not built for exact apologies. But the closest he could get, delivered in the register of a man who builds things carefully, and was acknowledging, with the specificity of someone who values precision, that he had made a structural error. Yes, I said. You should have. We both should have, my mother said. I looked at them both, across the table in my building, in the room I had designed, at the dinner they had organized to tell me I was failing. You're here now, I said. So am I. My mother reached across the table and covered my hand with hers. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. James sent me a message the following morning. Hope last night was okay. Realized after I left that I may have said something that landed at an unexpected moment. Let me know if I overstepped. I wrote back, You didn't. You said exactly the right thing at exactly the right time. Thank you. He replied with a single word. Good. That was the whole conversation. Some things don't require more words than that. My parents came to see the other properties the following spring. My father walked through each one with the evaluative attention of a man who understands numbers and was applying that understanding to something he had previously refused to see. He asked about cap rates and lease structures and vacancy history. He made notes on his phone. My mother was quieter. She moved through the spaces differently, not evaluating exactly, but absorbing, taking in the details, the thought that had gone into each building, the tenants inside them. At the last property, a mixed-use building in Brooklyn with a bakery on the ground floor and a community arts space on the second, she stopped in the middle of the bakery and looked around at the morning light coming through the front windows and the people at the tables and the particular warmth of a space that had been designed to make people feel welcomed. You made this, she said. Not a question. The conditions for it, I said. The people inside made it what it is. She looked at me. That's exactly what you used to say about what you wanted to do, she said. When you were 23. I remember. I didn't understand it then. Do you understand it now? I asked. She looked around the bakery one more time. Yes, she said. I think I finally do. If your family has ever looked at what you're building and seen nothing, this story is for you. And I need to ask you something before you leave. Do you think Mara was right to stay silent for 9 years? Or should she have forced her parents to see the truth sooner? Tell me in the comments, because there is no wrong answer, and I genuinely want to know what you think. If this story hit something real for you, hit that like button right now so more people who are quietly building in the dark can find it. Share this with someone in your life who is being told their dream isn't real. Because sometimes the most powerful thing we can do for each other is say, I see what you're building. And subscribe, because every week on this channel, we tell the stories of women who were told they were failing while they were building empires. You do not want to miss what's coming next. There's an exclusive Audible deal in the description. Your first month completely free. Over 500,000 titles waiting. For the builders, the dreamers, and everyone who ever needed a story to remind them why they started. Link is below. Use it.